Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the original Loretta Brown Show, radio to open the heart, heal the soul, awaken the consciousness. Good morning, Mr. Benny Mathers.
Hello.
Woo-hoo!
Good day. Good day.
Good day. Good
Mhm.
day. I love it. So, Benny, how you doing? We made it through May Day.
We did.
We made it through May the 4th be with you.
And you.
We made it through the 5-5 portal and the Cinco de Mayo, right?
Thankfully, yes, there wasn't too much of the tequila portal areas, which was good. I was able to make it here the next day. But yeah, everything turned out. Although I will have to say, in addition to, before I forget, happy early Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
And of course, if you're listening to the broadcast, we do repeat this after the show. So if you hear it, happy post Mother's Day to everyone as well.
Yeah, for sure. Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good, we all have a mother.
Oh, yes, we do.
I don't care what
mind blowing. So smart.
I know. And my dear mother has been in heaven for a few years, and she's probably having a great time up there having tea in English fine bone teacups or something with her sisters who are also up there.
Yeah, and she's tuning in right now to the show. So
she is.
It's part of the program.
Yeah. When I grew up, my mom was one of these people that taught us all the good etiquette. Mm-hmm. We had to walk around with books on our heads. Yes, we did. And we learned how to make tea, and you had to stir the tea, and your little pinky had to be
with books on your head too.
Well, we took those off.
Oh, okay.
But we would have the books on our heads while we were learning to sit in a chair and stand up out of a chair.
That's pretty impressive. So you have really good posture too.
I do. I have really good posture.
I'm so jealous.
I know, really. I know. I hope everybody goes out today and sees if they can walk around with a book.
I feel like I'm already kind of like straining myself up here just to like, because now I'm aware if I have terrible posture and you're like, perfect.
At the time, I kind of thought it was excessive. And then as life goes on and I ended up in Saudi Arabian palaces and things like that, I was like, oh, I know what all the silverware is for. So there. There's a use for it somewhere in the world. So anyway, Happy Mother's Day. We love our mothers. And sometimes, there's challenging, but lots of love out there. And if you're listening and you are a mother, maybe you're a young mother, you have kids, I'm just going to send you lots of love. You know what? It is all worth it. I love my kids like crazy. Best thing I ever did. I would definitely do it all again just for them. And also, Mother's Day is my son's birthday. So happy birthday to my son, who always likes to remain a little anonymous. For those people listening, I am the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area. You can find out more about that at ReikiOasis.com. And yes, I have a magnificent sacred trip coming up September 30th to November 14. We are going to Egypt. Again, this is a small group of travelers. And I only have a couple of places left on the trip. From the 14th of October to the 19th of October, we're going to extend, for those who want to stay, to Petra, Jordan. And this is really a great trip. I love it. I've done it quite a few times. I do take people in sacred places. But if you want to join us, if you want to find out about it, please send an email to ReikiOasis@gmail.com and just ask for information on the trip, and I will send it to you. And then we can set up what's called a discovery call, and we can do a little talking about it. But I'd love to have you come. They've discovered all this stuff and putting out all this information about what's really under the pyramids and the Sphinx. And of course, it's always controversial. But I promise that you will come back a different person, a better person. Somebody says, Loretta, when you say different or there's change, I get concerned. And I go, well, it's going to be good. And then I want to check in real quick with astrology. And then I want to bring my guest on, who is, you're just going to love him. He's been on the show before, but let me get to it. So we are in the month of May, the merry month of May, as they say, and it holds a very different energy than the months before. And I hope some of you are already feeling it. The planetary energies are on the move, inspiring us to step forward and maybe even take some leaps of faith into a new and hopefully brighter chapter, and pondering changes that have occurred in your life since October of 2024. So just take a moment, think back, October to May, what's been going on. Pluto is retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. Did that at the beginning of the month, and we're going to find ourselves thinking more about community or pondering how we fit in. And are we in the correct community? Do we need to change our communities? Aquarius can be a very healing energy, so our attention may turn to practices that enrich our well-being. And on the world stage, we may see Pluto retrograde shining a spotlight on the use of technology and AI, which it is doing, right? Pluto will end its retrograde journey by October 13th of 2024 is actually when we're going to be in the Great Pyramid of Egypt. Whoa, sounds like something's going on there. May 10th, which I think is Saturday, Mercury, the planet of communication, enters earthy Taurus, where we're encouraged to ground our thinking, bring it to earth. It's a great time to clear the mental clutter and focus on thoughts that bring nourishment and support. Wow, this is perfect for my guests coming on. We may also find it easier to plan our budgets. I know, our budgets and long-term goals that are focused on bringing us security. And that could be monetary security, it could be your home. A lot of people are moving, a lot of people are relocating right now. It's interesting. And then Monday, big stuff, we have a Scorpio full moon. This Scorpio full moon represents transformation and the cycles of death and rebirth. The 2025 Scorpio full moon is a great time to let any heaviness go and to focus on release work. Our attention is going to be centered around our emotions, but we might be experiencing very deep aha moments as well. Uranus is active under this full moon, indicating some instability or restlessness, but it seems the more we can be real with ourselves and our feelings, the easier time we'll be having. Also, on that full moon on Monday, May 12th, I will be doing what's called a Wesak Gong bath at Reiki Oasis. The Wesak moon is celebrated and recognized by the United Nations as the holiest day for millions of people who follow Buddhist teachings. Over 2,500 years ago, Buddha was born during the full moon in May. And it is said that on the same day, he received enlightenment on that same full moon, and that he also died on the same day, the full moon in May. So this Monday is, guess what? The full moon in May. And Buddha encouraged us not to mourn his death, but to follow his teachings. So I am part of a international Gong community, one of the things Loretta does, and I'm joining this international global sound meditation event as part of the tribe of the Way of the Gong to celebrate peace, compassion, and spiritual unity. And I'm sorry to say my event is already sold out. It was sold out before I even advertised it. But I invite you on Monday to send out intentions of peace, compassion, and unity in your very own way. And of course, you don't need to be a Buddhist to do that. That comes from our hearts. And so may all beings be free from suffering. And by the way, if you are interested in little intimate gong baths at Reiki Oasis, just go to schedule.reikioasis.com. Go to reikioasis.com. There will be a monthly gong bath coming up. And like I said, they're very small. So get in on that and then just watch for other things. By the way, if you haven't gotten my newsletter, sign up for the newsletter. And then, I don't send them out very regularly. I'm a busy girl, just letting you know, kind of got to keep watching what's going on with me, So anyway, I'm going to bring in Neil Douglas-Klotz, Ph.D., a world-renowned scholar, poet, and musician in Middle Eastern spirituality, specializing in the translation and interpretation of ancient Semitic languages like Aramaic, Hebrew, and Arabic. He's based in Scotland. He directs the Edinburgh Institute for Advanced Learning and co-founded the International Network of the Dances of Universal Peace. I want to do that right this moment, Neil. I want to do it right now. He's a former co-chair of the Mysticism Group at the American Academy of Religion. He's the best-selling author of Prayers of the Cosmos, The Hidden Gospel, Revelations of the Aramaic Jesus, and his latest book, The Aramaic Jesus, Book of Days. It's right here, in case you need it. He's known for his pioneering Aramaic translations of Jesus's teachings. I love this so much. And he bridges historical wisdom with contemporary challenges, offering a dogma-free path, really, to an authentic living. Neil is also a Sufi practitioner for over 40 years. Actually, I think he walks on water. Neil, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here today.
We have a lot of water here in Scotland, you know, Loretta. Yeah, there's a lot to walk on.
I can't wait to see the pictures.
Okay. Hey, you know, was your mother a milk first or a tea first person in her high tea?
Oh, it was milk first.
Milk first. There you go.
Oh.
You know, you can divide the whole world, the whole English tea world, between milk first and tea first.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, that's part of what it takes to live here, is knowing which side of the you know, the political divide you're on. It's either milk first or tea first. So
yeah, no, she taught me milk first, and so later on, people are like, "What are you doing? Don't you want some tea?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, but you know, you put it in that way."
Yeah, no, she was in good company, you know.
Yeah. We always had lots of fun with that. Yeah. I loved my mother a lot. She was a
Fabulous,
wonderful, gentle lady. And then she got this daughter. You know, well, that's how that happens. So
that is how this happens. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Anyway, I have had you on the show before. I want people to go look in the archives for the when we talked about the revelations of the Aramaic Jesus. This is a lovely book, and honest, Neil, your work has changed my life. The translations from the Aramaic to me are eye-opening. I don't know how to say this any better. I'm going to give you a lot of time to talk, but you breathe life into it. You bring something to the scriptures, I'm going to say, you know, because I was trained in the Bible, and a lot of times I was like, I don't really know what this is saying. I'm not quite sure what's happening here. And you have spent so much time translating the words of Jesus or Yeshua, right? And I want to ask you, what inspired you to do the Aramaic Jesus Book of Days? And tell us about this book. How is it different than your other books? Kind of take us through it a little bit.
Excellent. Well, you know, last time I was on, Loretta, it was with what I would call the big book, Revelations of the Aramaic Jesus. And I did that during COVID, actually, to sort of gather everything I had done in about 40 plus years. And, you know, it's a great book. It's a great resource. Many people love that book because I go sort of word by word through everything. And, you know, for some people, they really need that. And for other people, it's just like, I don't know what the abbreviation would be, but it's TMA, too much Aramaic. In other words, you know, it's like they don't need all of the words. They just want to be dropped into Jesus's spiritual experience. Because what I'm really revealing, and what my work has developed into, is showing that there's a Jesus before Christianity. There's a Jesus before Christian theology. There's a Jesus that's before most biblical studies scholars get a hold of him. And this reveals really Jesus is both a mystic and a prophet. And that's something that really, whether from the theological side, well, especially from the secular biblical studies scholar side, people don't want to admit that Jesus was actually a mystic or he had a spiritual way. They're willing to say maybe he was a prophet, maybe he was a revolutionary Jewish peasant, all these lovely things. But Jesus was showing a path, a spiritual path for other people to follow, just like the Buddha, just like Lao Tse, just like a lot of other folks. I mean, I had one teacher that told me, you The Buddha didn't want people to be Buddhists. He wanted people to be other little Buddhists. He wanted them to have the same realization that he was having. And the same is true of Jesus, or Yeshua, as would be his Aramaic name. He wanted people to reach the same place and maybe even go beyond where he was. And he says this quite clearly in the Gospel of John, where he says, those who come after me will do the things I have done and greater. If they remember, and this is the big if that is mistranslated out, he says, if they remember that it's not me doing all these things, it's the big reality, it's the big universe, it's the breathing life of all, the fathering, the mothering, that's doing all this wonderful stuff through me, and it can do the same through you. So, that's his message.
I love that. So in your book, and the full title is The Aramaic Jesus, Book of Days, 40 Days of Contemplation and Revelation. Why is 40 days significant?
Well, 40 days, you often find it in the Bible and in some other traditions. 40 days was the time when people would go on retreat. So the book is written in 40 short chapters. It takes maybe 10, 15 minutes to read a chapter at most. And then there's a short body prayer at the end of contemplation. So maybe even stretch it out to 20 minutes to do a quick sort of meditation a day. And also, when I was training in somatic psychology, that is neurophysiology, it was shown that 6 weeks, which is about 40 days, was the right amount of time to change a habit or a behavior that a person didn't want to carry any further into their life. And so that seems to be something that's built into us, and also that the ancients were pointing us towards. So hence the 40 days and the little sips. The little sips each chapter. You just take a sip a day, and hopefully by the end of the 40 days, you may be a different person. I hope so. Anyway, some people have written to say it works for them, so maybe it works for you.
Well, and I look at this like, a lot of people have like your daily readings or whatever it is that you're doing. And, when I first picked it up, I looked at it like that. And then, it's one of those things where, do you want people to go straight through it? Do you want them to go randomly? What do you advise is the best way to use this?
Well, I wrote the book sort of randomly or intuitively. I would say intuitively rather than randomly.
Yeah.
So it's meant to also be opened as an oracle. So you breathe in your heart for a breath or two, ask what you need to see or hear for today, and then you just, keep your eyes closed and just open the book. And the way it's written is wherever you open it, you're going to find a different day, a different chapter. So I had to limit, budget each chapter to fit that format, but it works. So, you can go randomly through, you can search for things, there's an index, and you could even go, day by day straight through. It works that way too, I think.
I am just opening up to chapter 1. That's actually what popped open.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because that's where I was. And chapter 1, just for the listeners, the doorway of anxiety. So you have these keywords here, which I would imagine are Aramaic, right? And then you go into roots and branches, the message for today, and the contemplation. So I really love how you have that set out. I want to talk a little bit about Aramaic and what, that, just talk about it a little bit. How did you get into this, going back to the Aramaic and translating, and how does that change things? What is I'm going to let you talk.
Yeah, no, sure. Just to bring people up to speed. Well, Aramaic is an ancient language. It's part of a group of languages called Semitic languages, which include Hebrew, ancient Egyptian. Speaking of going to Egypt, ancient Egyptian is a Semitic language too. Classical Arabic, Babylonian. All of these were languages of this family, as scholars regard them. But ultimately, these are languages that come out of an ancient, what I would call Southwest Asian nomadic experience. So this is an indigenous tradition, just like indigenous Americans, indigenous Aboriginals are, indigenous Africans. If you go way back in time, 100,000 years, our ancestors in that area are traveling like nomads. This is before agriculture. They're hunting, they're gathering. And so their language is gradually put together from the way they make sounds in relationship to their environment, their, the nature around them, and what they intuit is the stars, the sky around them, the planets, the galaxies, although they don't use those words, what their place in the universe is. The seen and the unseen world. Who are the beings that are helping us in the unseen world? Who are the beings that are not helping us? Who are the, can I connect with my good ancestors to guide me further? All these are real concerns of these folks, and in some ways they're real concerns now. So Aramaic is part of this family of languages. Jesus spoke Aramaic. No one argues that he did not speak Aramaic. Very few people argue that he spoke Greek because most of his listeners wouldn't have understood him. Greek was a language of the people who collaborated with the Roman Empire, or with the Greeks who were before them. And Aramaic was the native language of that area. People at the time of Jesus in that area were no longer speaking ancient Hebrew because ancient Hebrew had sort of morphed into this form of Aramaic in this area. Because of, again, the empires that had roared through the Middle East at that point. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, and the Greeks come through. And when people return from the so-called captivities, those folks are speaking already Aramaic. At least most of them are, I would say. And those who were left behind, who weren't valuable enough to carry into captivity, they were speaking a different form that is now called Samaritan, or so that language is still spoken, actually. Ancient Samaritan is really the clearest remnant of very, very ancient Hebrew. But Yeshua and his students are speaking Aramaic. How I got into it was from sound. I think I talked about this last time. I can't remember, actually. That for the Sufis and for most Eastern traditions, intoning sound, like mantras in the Eastern tradition, this is very important because sound has the ability to, you could say, change energy. Sound is energy, you could say, from this point of view. Our voices, the sounds we make affect our surroundings in many, many ways. So intoning sacred words, this became very interesting to me. More than interesting, became a sort of obsession, really, because I was feeling, as I intoned different sounds, especially in Aramaic, I felt different sensations in my body than I had with any other language. And I chanted some in Arabic and Hebrew. I tried some chanting in Sanskrit, in Pali, Hindu mantras, but Aramaic was really what got my big attention. And the reason I started in on it was because one of the people I was looking into as a resource, he said that if Yeshua was to do his chanting, you could say his more profound chanting, it would be in his native language, Aramaic. And this person had not had a chance to do that in his lifetime. But since I was editing and you could say, basically editing his diaries for a publication I was putting together, that struck me. And I started to follow this Aramaic thread down the rabbit hole. And here I am, close to 50 years later now. I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, but it ended up being quite a big deal.
Quite a big deal. I am also very musical, right? And I do chanting and things like that. But I have for a long time, and I was telling you before the show, like I really have a great deal of respect for you and your ability to study the languages, and more than one languages. But I have this kind of theory that, like, when you go to different countries and people are speaking their language falls within a certain pitch level, like Japanese is a different pitch than Americans, and also maybe even a different tempo or cadence or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You find that with Chinese, Chinese varies in pitch according to the syllables and things like that. So probably ancient languages were more like that, I would say.
Yeah, more like that. Do you have, because I am like sitting here like going, I want to hear some Aramaic, Mr. Neil. I'm sure people do. Hold it until after the break. We're going to talk a little bit, but I'm just giving you a little heads up to think about what it is that you might want to share with us. I want to ask you, the study of Aramaic, how has that affected you? Was there a moment where some sort of a translation really, really shifted you?
You know, for me, every time I do a translation, it shifts me, Loretta.
Yeah.
You know, because part of my doing the translation is, I mean, if you excuse being overly, uh, how do you say, simplistic, it's like I have to load in both sides of the brain. So it's not only the language part, but then I have to load in the experiential part also. And I start to do the chanting, just chanting on one note, a particular word, or breathing with it, meditating with it, feeling the sound inside, all these things that most of the sound healing traditions or other traditions that work with sound talk about. So I learned a lot of these. And so, you know, each time things change. You know, I mean, like this chapter that you opened to of the
Yeah.
Aramaic Jesus Book of Days, it's based on the saying of Jesus, as I recall. Um, what is it? Well, how is it? Let's see, how does it go there? I can only remember my translation.
That,
Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. That's what the King James says. Seek
yeah.
first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Well, of course, you know, all this kingdom and God and he and his and all that, that's not there, because the word for kingdom in Aramaic is feminine gendered. So right there it should be queendom and should be her righteousness. Well, but the kingdom, the malkuta, as Jesus talks about it, is really the sense of vision. Seek the vision that comes with an energy attached to it. And the word for seek means, okay, be anxious. This is the doorway of anxiety. When you're anxious, then look within, look for the source, look for where the new vision will come that will alleviate your anxiety and your fear and all of that. And there will be a vision come if you really need it, if you really ask for it. And it won't just be a picture in your mind. It will be a vision that comes with a great deal of energy. And then Jesus says, and the righteousness part, which again becomes an overly theological concept or something we have to believe in and don't really know what righteousness actually is. Righteousness in Aramaic means, you know, once you have this vision, it will straighten out what you do next. It'll straighten out your life. You'll see what to do next clearly. What is my next step? It will make your life sort of right or clear in that sense. Justified, if you will, not justified in the sense of justified by some belief or something, but it will make it clear and sort of straight on. Okay, here's what's mine to do, so I'll do that.
If you don't mind, I'm going to read what you've got right here because you just said
I
it
don't
so
remember
lovely.
actually.
Well, you know, I wouldn't expect you to have your book memorized. You know, that's the deal. But chapter 1 in his book is called The Doorway of Anxiety, which, yeah, you think? Yes,
You think?
we are there, right? And then
I know,
you
and I
have
wrote this book 2 years ago, so go figure. I don't know. Like I said, it was done intuitively.
Yes, I think it was guided and directed for sure. And then you have your keywords, and forgive me, I'm sure this isn't correct. You've got Malkuta de Allaha Zadik Kuta or something. You probably
Yeah,
can say it better
Zadikuta,
than me.
yeah. No, you've it's pretty good.
Oh, right. And then it says, when you're guided here, and the verse is, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and these things will be added unto you, right? Like that's it, right?
Yeah.
In the King James. But here it is, when you are guided here, consider whether your situation in life is asking you to stop, breathe, and connect with a deeper voice within you saying, I can. And then Yeshua counsels, if you're going to be anxious and rush around about anything, do it first with finding the I can of the cosmos within you and how it straightens out and clarifies your life. That blows me away.
That's it. Anyway, so there you are. That's chapter 1. Maybe it's chapter 1 for most of us today. I don't know.
I think so. You know, like I said, I just kind of flipped it and it went right there. And yeah, it's the beginning of the book, but I think we do need it. We're going to take a little station break. My amazing guest today, Neil Douglas-Klotz, Klotz, right? And we're talking about the Aramaic Jesus Book of Days. And it's a wonderful book, 40 Days of Contemplation and Revelation. you could go buy it while we're taking a little break.
Sure, why not?
Was that too direct? Anyway, we'll be right back, and Neil Douglas-Klotz is going to share with us some more about Aramaic. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Cool. All clear.
Do you know a veteran in need? Nation's Finest, through the VA's Supportive Services for Veteran Families program, helps veterans and their families struggling with rent, employment, and other housing-related costs. Today, Nation's Finest operates more than 30 locations in California, Arizona, and Nevada, helping thousands of veterans every year. Visit nationsfinest.org or call 1-833-468-9676. That's 1-833-468-9676.
Did you know that Reiki healing can be done at a distance? It's true. So let Reiki Oasis focus powerful energy to help relieve your stress, grief, sadness, anger, and so much more. Convenient, personalized treatments at a distance can increase lightness of being. During your appointment, find a quiet place to lie down or sit to receive healing energies. If you want help with your dis-ease, visit ReikiOasis.com. Harness life's energy. Visit ReikiOasis.com today.
Do you have something important to say? Want to help improve our world? Need to promote your business uniquely and effectively? KKNW is the answer. Our staff helps broadcasters and podcasters create professional sounding audio. Bring your talent and let our experts help you craft a radio show or podcast that best delivers your message. Learn more at 1150kknw.com. That's 1150kknw.com. KKNW. Variety talk radio that's live and local.
Miss a show on KKNW? Check out 1150kknw.com for podcasts of many of our programs. That's 1150kknw.com.
Welcome back to the original Loretta Brown Show with my guest today, Neil Douglas-Klotz, Ph.D., world-renowned scholar, poet, and musician in Middle Eastern spirituality, specializing in the translation and interpretation of ancient Semitic languages like Aramaic, right, which I'm loving. I want a reminder to everybody, and I'm sorry, just the energy today. The sun is out, and it makes me happy. These shows are archived; they're downloaded for free at the 11:50 a.m. KKNW archives for the original Loretta Brown Show, and of course, we're everywhere. We're on YouTube and iTunes, Podcast One, Spotify, X, Megaphone, and so forth. And so please go and find our other show from a couple of years ago. And now I'm going to bring Neil back on. So before the break, I was asking Neil if he would mind sharing with us something very special. And I think he's got some ideas. What do you say, Neil?
I have some ideas. Let's see. Well, if people want to chant a little bit of Aramaic, I think what we'll do is we'll chant two of those words from that chapter you mentioned, Loretta.
Okay.
And or maybe three. And those are the words Malkuta. That's the word that is translated as kingdom, but should be queendom, or the I can of the big universe, of the cosmos, that which says I can to life. So we all have this within us. It's not something, just only out there. When we're 2 years old or roughly thereabouts, we start to say, Mom, speaking of moms, I can do this myself. Let me do this myself. And so this is the birth of the I can that the ancients saw that was happening within every human being. And Yeshua counsels that we connect that I can with where it came from, which is this big vision power in the cosmos. And so we'll chant Malkuta de Allah. Allah is the word that Jesus uses for, so to speak, God. But really, you could translate it goddess. You could translate it reality. You could translate it, oneness. Any of those things would be more accurate in many ways. So Allah sounds similar to, as you know, since you spent time in Saudi Arabia, sounds similar to Allah, which is the Arabic. And by the way, as I think I mentioned last time, it's both Muslims and Christians in the Middle East who are Arabic speakers who use the name Allah. It's not just Muslims, but just so people know, it's a more generic word for reality or divinity. Jesus uses the prior word, Allah, which has a little bit extra breath in it, you could say. The ha, in many traditions, like Hamsa, Soha, in the Far Eastern traditions, it is always indicating, you could say, the sacred name that's inside the sound of each of our breath. The sound of my breath is a sacred name that only I can feel, and the sound of your breath within you is a sacred name that only you can feel. So hence, you can't really pronounce it for someone else. It's like our own unique doorway in that sense. So we'll chant a little bit of Malkuta de Allah, and
yeah,
let's do that. And the way I did this chant originally is I added in this extra word, and people can just sort of do the best they can with it. This is the word for straightening out our lives. Zadikuta. In the Hebrew, the earlier Hebrew, you have like Melchizedek, the king, or you could say the ruler of the Zadok, of the straight vision, is really what that is. And then later in Arabic, you have the name Sadiq, that you'll probably know if you spend time in Arabic-speaking cultures. So Sadiq is based on the same word, and it also means that which is clear, that which is straight, that which is attuned. All these would be translations. So anyway, that's what we'll chant. So we'll chant Malkuta de Allah Wazadikuta, and we'll just chant that a few times so people can say, hey, I went to Loretta Brown's show today and I chanted Aramaic. Go figure. Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Wazadikute, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Wazadikute, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Wazadikute, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Wazadikute, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Wazadikute, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Malkuta de Allah, Wazadikute, Let's just breathe and feel together wherever you are, whether listening on the recording or live. Just breathe the word Malkuta, Malkuta. Deep within us, there's a voice that says, I can, that knows how to open to vision, knows how to open to power, to energy, to accomplish a vision in our lives. And this is a vision of just what is ours to do next. It doesn't have to be some huge life goal, although sometimes that can pop through as well. But this is a vision of, okay, I have a choice to make in my life. Where do I feel the energy? Where do I feel the light leading me? Malkuta breathed in, Allah breathed out. So breathing in Malkuta, that vision, the I can, breathing out Allah, feeling our own small self connected with you could say, the source of that self, Allah, reality itself, where we come from. Our I connected with the source of that I, which is, you could say, beyond name, beyond form. Malkuta de Allah. Breathing in the heart, feeling our hearts filled full to overflowing with this Malkuta, this energy that comes with a vision attached to accomplish it. Amen, amen, amen.
Wow.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much.
A little bit of a flavor of something.
That's exactly what I needed. I hope it's what the listeners needed. That was
I hope so too.
so wonderful, Neil. Thank you for that. What a blessing. What a wonderful thing. And I was also thinking when you were talking, so Malkuta, as you say, could be translated in a feminine form. And I went, well, it's kind of appropriate for Mother's Day even. So
Absolutely.
everything comes together. I do talk to people all the time about, I can do this, but also this idea of going deeper in, to go deeper in, to make a deeper connection and really access where all of that knowledge, wisdom, ability comes from, that deep place.
Yeah. And, as you mentioned, the doorway is always the heart. The doorway is the heart. I mean, many people are surprised to hear that these languages I'm working with, I discovered recently, fairly recently, that they have no word for mind. They only have a word for heart. And so the thoughts are residing on the surface of the heart, the thoughts, the emotions. So although those are helpful and can be helpful, sometimes they get in our way. So we have to dive deeper. So this whole feeling of needing to go deeper is right on. I mean, we know it in our bodies. So the ancients knew this too. You have to go into the deeper, the bigger heart to find that vision or that, that bigger energy.
Yeah, and so many people nowadays are talking about connection or feeling a need for connection. They're thirsty for this connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about Yeshua being a mystic, right? Being a mystic. I want you to talk a little bit about that. Like, why is that important? Maybe even especially today. How does that what I'm trying to think, how does that challenge the Western perception of Jesus, and how does it shift us?
Yeah, well, where do you want me to start? But
I don't
mean,
know.
the reason I had to learn all of this and get a PhD and all that is because, there's so much cluttered on top of what Jesus is actually talking about, whether from the theological side, you could say Christian theology. Not all theology is bad, but a lot of it has really cluttered up and confused what Jesus is talking about. And on the other side, having worked in the biblical studies field for many years, also from this sort of secular biblical studies side, which really has made Jesus into an industry in some ways, to publish books about, and, the historical Jesus movement, all these folks. And so on both sides, you have to sort of clear all this away. I mean, on the theological side, a lot of this is based on the fact that our translations of the Bible happen, well, they're starting in about the 1600s, something like that, around the time of the Reformation. Before that time, it was illegal for your average Christian in Europe to even own a copy of the Bible. It was a crime punishable by death to have a copy of the Bible in your house, because you're supposed to listen to what the priest tells you.
Yeah.
I mean, what the priest will tell you what you need to hear from the Bible and what it means. So that's 1600 years roughly of people, this sort of, you could say, in the mental sphere, if you want to use that term, the morphogenetic field of the West, all the misinterpretations of Jesus go to fuel, well, where do you want to start? Racism, colonialism, imperialism, ecocide. I mean, I don't want to shock people too much for their morning coffee or anything, but I mean, basically, a lot of it goes to fuel that, because Christianity, you could say 300 years after Jesus, becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire, and it all spirals out of control from there. But again, there was Aramaic-speaking Christianity existing outside of the Roman Empire, and that's very different. So that's the religious side. On the secular side, you start to have in the, let's say, the 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, this whole search for the historical Jesus.
Yes.
And they want to make Jesus into just your average everyday person. Nothing special. Maybe he didn't even exist, which is a point of view some scholars take, due to some very strange logic. Actually, it's not even really logical logic, that if he didn't say the same thing exactly more than one time, then he never said anything. And how many spiritual teachers or any lecturers in general do you know that say the same thing over and over again? Well, unless they're reading from a script, which people were not doing at that time, they weren't going to do that. So that's no proof of authenticity of a particular saying. So you could say in both cases, you could say the secular biblical Jesus field, they've sort of made Jesus sort of flat. He's not three-dimensional. He can't be a mystic. He can't be, someone that's actually in touch with the other worlds. And in some ways, Christian theology has done the same. We're supposed to believe things about Jesus, believe various concepts about Jesus, most of which are contrary to what he actually said. And that also has flattened Jesus. He just becomes an object of belief or unbelief, or whether you believe everything that various theologians say or you discount them. It's like either I believe it or I don't believe, but you don't really hear what he's having to say. So as I sometimes say, the two big things I'm challenging in our culture today is, first, that the other world does not exist, that the unseen world does not exist. There's an unseen world of beings, some of which are helpful, many of which are helpful, some of which are not so helpful. There are influences of the stars and planets who are actually seen as living beings in the ancient world. They're not just objects. They're, again, not just physical objects. So the tendency now is just to see, well, consciousness is just an epiphenomenon of my brain. In other words, it's just my brain firing that produces consciousness. Well, that's an illusion. That's not provable. It's not even logical. So for most of the ancient traditions, an unseen world does exist. Our bigger self, our much bigger self, as Jung would have called it, is part of that other world. And it's beaming to us a remembrance of where we came from, where we're going. So that first big illusion is the other side, the unseen world does not exist. The second big illusion is that only I exist and only I matter.
Yeah.
So these are the two big illusions that are really harming where we are as a human species right now. The good news is that human consciousness does continue to evolve. And so even though we've painted ourselves into a corner now in many ways, there is, along with this sort of selfishness, there is the ability to choose and to, you could say, remember what we came here for, where we came from, and where we're going. And I think that's, you're doing a lot of that work. Other folks are doing it. I do my little bit. So, we're all putting our aura in where we can, really.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Yeah, it's a combined effort, that is for sure.
Yeah.
And I kind of pay attention to, I just call it the thirst or the longing. I do know that the last few years, have been very hard on people. and they're kind of emerging now. They're coming back out, and they need to come out. Like, we are a social race, we need to interact with each other. And these teachings, this book, your big book, as you call it, The Revelations of Aramaic Jesus, I highly recommend to people. But your new book, The Aramaic Jesus, the Book of Days, and I want to pull this out also. You have such a combination of Semitic, Sufi, Christian, so this book is not just for, quote, Christians, or it kind of crosses the lines of everything, doesn't it?
I try to anyway.
Yeah. So it's more, in my opinion, it's more spiritual than religious. And also, I want,
definitely.
yeah, and I want
Definitely.
to, I don't know, maybe ask, it's a question, but it's also a comment, like reading the translations of the Aramaic, right? And comparing them with what it is that I memorized as a child, has kind of relieved me a little bit. Like you said, instead of a flat Jesus or such a dogmatic way of being, this is much more heart-centered. It breathes, it moves, it sings. It's like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all heart-centered. I mean, I think I probably had a similar upbringing to you, Loretta, because although my parents were sort of alternative, early 1950s alternative folks who were into chiropractic and Edgar Cayce and Rachel Carson and all that stuff, they sent us to Missouri Synod Lutheran Elementary School, and I had to learn all of Luther's small catechism and the King James Bible, a lot by heart. And so it was great for memory. And I still, that's how I'm able to remember a lot of these King James Version passages. But, it's like sometimes I look at these and I say, how did they get that? I mean, even the Greek, even if they're translating from the Greek doesn't say that. So it's, I puzzle and also enjoy it at the same time, since I'm now at an age where I can sort of enjoy things and not get too outraged.
Yeah.
I watch the news, but whatever.
Yeah, me too. I watch the news through the wrong end of binoculars sometimes. It's just way over there somewhere. I got to tell you this. I don't know why my parents must be hanging around, but you said that about Edgar Cayce. So yes, I was raised in a very traditional Christian family, and then my dad would have me read all these books, like all the Edgar Cayce books. He'd take me car shopping, and we would talk about weird and wild things, and he'd say, "Don't tell your mother."
Very good.
So thank you, Dad. I love you so much. Thank you, Mom. I love you so much. So, yeah, it's a family show today, I guess. That's interesting. Yeah. We're down to just like the last 2 minutes, which is insane. What do you hope people really get from your book? And I'm just going to ask this question. What are you most excited about right now?
What I'm most excited about is that people are going to rediscover, their freedom to choose, a better course. And that is also deeply within them. This is what Yeshua shows us. He doesn't necessarily say you have to go exactly the same way he does. Although, as I say, a lot of passages are translated that way, but he wants to free us. This is what he says: you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Well, the truth is not a concept. The truth, which he calls Shrada, is the sense that our heart has to go in the right direction. And I think I said this last time, but whether I did or not, it's still worth hearing about. The truth, you could say the GPS, the real rangefinder, is in your own heart. And he says that is going to free you from, all this nonsense that you don't need to get involved with, and show you what you need to do in life. So that's what I'm hoping my work does, and that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, very exciting. Where can people find you? Do you have a website or someplace they can go to?
Of course. It's abwoon.org, aboon.org, abwoon.org. And there's a lot of free stuff to download, and you can hear Aramaic spoken by me, I think. No, it is by me, I know. There'll be a link to this podcast there, I think, yes. Loretta, once it's up. Yeah.
Yep. We'll make sure that you get it. You'll find it. And are you working on any more books? You got anything else coming up?
I am, but it's another Sufi book. I did my last Sufi book 10 years ago. Well, actually a little less than that, but I'm working more in language again on these. You'll know about this, Loretta, the so-called beautiful names in the Sufi tradition.
Oh, yes. Yes,
And I
yes.
did the 99 most beautiful, but then I discovered, well, there are many others that are pretty beautiful anyway that are in the Quran. And so these have also been obscured by some problematic translations, I'll say. So I'm
Yeah.
working on another book of that.
You know, you talk about the problematic translations. That's one of the questions that's been in my mind for so long. We're not going to go into it, but thank you so much, Neil Douglas-Klotz, for being on my show. It's such a delight. You have wonderful energy, a beautiful heart, and the Aramaic Jesus Book of Days. Go get it right now. Just do it. You'll be glad you did. And happy Mother's Day, everybody. And yeah, love on each other. Thank you, Mr. Benny Mathers. You're the best.